What if the person who keeps pulling away from you is actually the one falling the hardest? What if their silence isn't a sign of not caring, but a sign of caring so deeply it terrifies them? Most people give up right before the breakthrough. They see distance and they call it rejection. They see quietness and they call it coldness. But what they're missing is the most important truth about how certain people love. They don't love loudly. They love slowly. They love through actions so small that most people never even notice them. And if you've ever been in a relationship where you felt like you were constantly chasing someone who seemed just out of reach, this video is going to change the way you see everything. Stay with me. Because what you're about to learn could be the difference between walking away from someone who genuinely loves you and finally understanding the most misread kind of love that exists. Have you ever loved someone who seemed to run every time things got a little too close? Someone who appeared completely calm on the outside but was carrying silent storms on the inside? The truth is, when a person with avoidant attachment begins to fall in love, it doesn't look like closeness. It looks like conflict. It looks like confusion. It looks like distance. But if you can learn to see through their silence, you will realize something powerful is happening underneath all of it. Love is rewriting fear. Right now, in real time, the shift from avoidance to vulnerability in someone with an avoidant attachment style is not a sudden or dramatic transformation. It's a quiet, almost invisible evolution that takes place beneath the surface of their emotional walls. For most of their life, they've used distance as protection. Space was their safety net. Independence was their armor. They learned very early that closeness often came with pain, unpredictability, or some kind of rejection they never fully recovered from. So when love enters their life, it doesn't immediately feel like warmth or comfort. To them, it feels like danger. Emotional intimacy threatens the balance they've worked so hard to build and maintain for years. Yet, when an avoidant person begins to truly love someone, something deep inside them begins to stir. They start to feel a pull that challenges every rule they once built their world around. At first, this pull confuses them completely. Love starts to feel like both longing and fear wrapped together into one overwhelming experience. Their first instinct is to retreat, to restore the emotional distance that makes them feel safe again. But when someone truly reaches them, not by demanding closeness, but by offering patience and emotional steadiness, the avoidant person begins to lower their guard slowly and carefully, bit by bit. This is the first real shift. The person who once hid behind composure starts to reveal small glimpses of vulnerability. It might be a moment where their voice softens when they talk about something painful. It might be them choosing to stay in a difficult conversation instead of finding an excuse to escape it. It could be as subtle as them allowing silence to sit between you two without rushing to fill it or retreat from it. These small acts may seem completely ordinary to most people, but for someone who has spent their entire life running from emotional exposure, they are absolutely monumental. And if you've ever wondered whether someone like this actually cares, keep watching, because the answer is in the details most people overlook. This change doesn't come from outside pressure. It emerges from an internal conflict they can no longer ignore. Love forces them to confront parts of themselves they've kept buried for years: the need for comfort, the fear of being abandoned, the quiet desire to truly be known by someone. They begin to realize, slowly and painfully, that connection doesn't have to mean losing control, and that closeness doesn't always lead to hurt. The avoidant mind wrestles with this realization like a puzzle it cannot easily solve. They are both terrified and fascinated by the intimacy they're beginning to feel growing inside them. And while their old habits may still appear from time to time, pulling away, going quiet, seeming indifferent, underneath all of it lies a growing and real sense of trust forming. The very fact that they are trying to stay, despite how uncomfortable it feels, is already evidence of love in motion. When they start letting their partner see them as they actually are, without the armor of perfection or emotional detachment, it's a clear sign that their walls are softening from the inside. They may begin to share thoughts they have never spoken out loud before. They might open up about their fears in ways that feel clumsy and unpolished. And that's okay. Vulnerability for an avoidant person often looks messy because it's unfamiliar territory. It's like trying to speak a new language where every single word feels like a risk. But if you pay close attention, you'll see that each honest attempt, each effort to stay present, is their quiet way of saying, "I'm learning to trust you." These moments become the foundation of something real, something deep. Because avoidants don't fall in love through grand declarations or sweeping romantic gestures. They fall in love through surrender, through the quiet courage of showing what they once believed they needed to keep hidden forever. They begin to understand that being seen doesn't always lead to pain. They start to believe that vulnerability can be a bridge instead of a wound. Love becomes the safe experiment through which they slowly learn that intimacy and independence can actually live together in the same space. They don't have to choose one or the other. That is the realization that changes everything for them. So when you start to notice this shift, when the guarded one begins to show their softer edges, it is not confusion or inconsistency. It's the beginning of their heart learning an entirely new rhythm, one that no longer moves in fear, but in something that resembles trust. When an avoidant person begins to love someone deeply, they often find themselves in a quiet war with their own instincts. Everything inside them that once demanded distance starts to clash with an equally powerful urge to stay close. This inner struggle is not a sign of confusion or mixed feelings. It's actually a rebellion against the old psychological patterns that once kept them protected, but also kept them isolated. For years, their mind was conditioned to believe that intimacy meant danger. Love was never simple for them. It felt like a battlefield where getting close meant losing control, where showing emotion was weakness, and where self-sufficiency was the only real safety. But when a genuine emotional connection begins to awaken something deep inside them, that entire old system starts to develop cracks. They begin questioning their own reflexes. They hesitate before shutting down. They notice the gap between what they feel and what they fear. That gap is where healing begins. That gap is where love finds its way through. This inner rebellion is rarely visible from the outside. You likely won't see dramatic declarations or sudden personality changes. What you'll see instead are small but meaningful shifts. A moment of hesitation before they go quiet. A slightly softer tone after an argument. A willingness to listen even when they feel emotionally overwhelmed. These are the quiet signs of someone rewriting their emotional programming in real time. Each moment they choose connection over withdrawal, they are directly defying years of deep conditioning. And that is not easy. Their nervous system has literally been trained to interpret intimacy as a threat. So staying emotionally close to someone they actually care about can feel physically uncomfortable and deeply unsettling. Yet, they continue trying, because love is slowly and consistently teaching them that safety can exist within closeness, not only in solitude. Think about what that means for a moment. They are choosing discomfort because they've found something worth being uncomfortable for. That's not confusion. That's love. Inside this transformation, it feels like a constant tug of war. One part of them desperately wants to open up, to feel the genuine warmth of being understood and accepted, while another part panics and wants nothing more than to retreat back to the familiar comfort of emotional distance. It's an ongoing negotiation between fear and desire, between survival and surrender, between the life they knew and the life they're beginning to want. When an avoidant begins to care deeply, they start noticing something they never expected. The walls they built to protect themselves are now the very things preventing them from experiencing the depth they secretly crave. They begin to realize that real strength isn't found in isolation. It's found in the courage to risk connection, even knowing it might hurt. This realization is often painful because it forces them to look honestly at the truth, that much of what they called peace was actually just avoidance dressed up as independence. What makes this transformation so profound is that it cannot be forced by anyone from the outside. It is entirely an internal awakening. Nobody can make an avoidant person love differently. They have to reach that point themselves. They have to decide in their own time that they are ready to stop running. Love acts like a mirror for them. It reflects back both their fears and their untapped capacity for growth. When they begin to see that intimacy doesn't have to swallow them whole, something inside genuinely shifts. They start acting against their own instincts, not because the fear disappears, but because they have found something worth being afraid for. That is what the rebellion looks like. The choice to stay, even when every part of their body and mind is screaming at them to leave. It's them sending a message back instead of disappearing. It's them saying, "I need a little space," instead of just vanishing into silence. It's them returning after conflict instead of pretending it never happened. These are not small things. These are revolutions happening inside their emotional world. And every single time they come back, they prove something new to themselves. That connection does not destroy them. It grounds them. And that realization is where healing truly begins. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, love doesn't arrive with big romantic moments or verbal declarations. It arrives quietly and almost invisibly through small gestures that most people would completely overlook. Their way of expressing affection rarely matches the traditional picture of romance. They don't flood you with constant words or continuous emotional closeness. Instead, their love lives in subtle consistency, in reliability, in a kind of quiet presence that never demands to be noticed but is always, always there. To truly understand them, you have to learn how to read between the lines. You have to feel the message that lives behind their restraint. When an avoidant person begins to love you, they may not say those 3 words very often, but they'll start showing it in ways that feel grounded, real, and completely genuine. This kind of love is expressed through action, not performance. They might remember the smallest details about you, the way you take your coffee, the expression on your face when something is bothering you, the specific things that help you feel safe. For someone who has always chosen distance, paying that level of close attention to another person is already an act of surrender. It means they're allowing you into their mental space. And that is a place they almost never let anyone enter. They may begin doing small things to make your life a little easier, helping with something before you even ask, showing up when you need them, even if they don't say much when they arrive, becoming a consistent and reliable presence in your day-to-day life. To most people, these things might seem ordinary and expected, but for someone with an avoidant attachment style, they represent extraordinary effort. They show love by offering stability, by becoming a safe and predictable presence in your world. This works for them because consistency feels like a manageable form of closeness. It allows them to stay connected without feeling like they're losing their sense of self. Grand gestures make them feel dangerously exposed. So instead of chasing emotional highs, they express care through steadiness and quiet support. You may also notice that they start including you in their daily routines, opening small parts of their private world to you, showing you the spaces they normally keep just for themselves. That is their version of an invitation, their way of telling you that you matter enough to exist inside their comfort zone. And that means more than most people realize. Words are complicated for them. They've learned over time that saying too much can lead to emotional exposure or a kind of dependence they don't know how to navigate. so they measure everything they express very carefully. This doesn't mean they don't feel deeply. In fact, they often feel far more than they can put into words. Their silence is not emptiness, it's protection. When they begin to share small pieces of themselves, a childhood memory, a personal dream, a quiet insecurity they've never told anyone, it's not just casual conversation. It's a signal. It means they're starting to trust that their inner world is safe with you. The process may be slow and uneven, but every word shared is a brick removed from the wall they've spent years building around their heart. And here's something important to understand. Their love also shows up in moments of contradiction. They might pull away after a particularly close or emotional experience. This withdrawal doesn't mean they stopped caring. It means their system is recalibrating. Intimacy feels intense and sometimes overwhelming for them, and they need quiet time to process it and settle. But the key difference, when they are truly falling in love, is that they always come back. They return after the silence. They don't disappear permanently, because the bond forming between you has started to outweigh their fear of it. Love is teaching them a new rhythm. Come closer, step back, return, and stay just a little longer each time. They will also begin to show a quiet kind of protectiveness, though not in possessive or controlling ways. They'll start thinking more carefully about how their actions might affect you. They'll check in more often than before, even if it feels awkward for them. They'll make real efforts to keep their promises, even when doing so is uncomfortable. For an avoidant, keeping a promise is actually a profound expression of love. It represents the kind of stability they once feared giving to anyone. They are slowly learning that commitment does not have to mean losing freedom. It can mean building trust, real trust, the kind that feels safe. Understanding and receiving love from an avoidant person requires genuine patience and emotional sensitivity. Their affection does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself through small details, through presence, through reliability, through quiet and consistent effort. Where others might use words, they use actions. Where others might seek constant closeness, they offer steadiness. They love not by overwhelming you with attention, but by showing up in the ways that matter most, at the times you least expect it. And though their love may seem understated on the surface, it carries a sincerity that very few people can match. Because every single gesture is a conscious choice, a deliberate defiance of fear, and a quiet, honest confession straight from the heart. When an avoidant person pulls away, it almost always looks like rejection from the outside. But underneath that distance lives a deep and tangled fear that most people never take the time to understand. To truly see an avoidant, you have to look beyond their behavior and into the emotional history that shaped them. Many avoidants learned very early in life that closeness could be painful, unpredictable, or conditional. They may have experienced a form of love that came attached to control, emotional unavailability, or inconsistency that left them never knowing what to expect, and so they adapted. They learned that emotional distance wasn't a lack of love, it was protection from disappointment. That's important to hold on to. They didn't become avoidant because they don't care. They became avoidant because caring once cost them too much. This fear doesn't go away when they fall in love again. If anything, it gets more intense. The more they genuinely care about someone, the more vulnerable they feel, and the stronger the urge to retreat becomes. What looks like indifference from the outside is often inner panic, the panic of being truly seen, of needing someone, of losing the self-reliance that kept them going when nothing else did. And that kind of panic is not easy to just think your way out of. It lives in the body, it lives in the nervous system, it lives in places that logic can't simply reach. Avoidants are afraid of being consumed by intimacy. They've come to see deep emotional connection as a threat to their independence, and their independence, however lonely it might be at times, feels like survival to them. They might begin to genuinely care for someone and then suddenly pull back, becoming cold or emotionally distant in a way that seems to come out of nowhere. But here's the truth. Their feelings haven't vanished. Their internal system simply became overwhelmed by the intensity of the closeness they were beginning to feel. Their mind tells them that distance will restore a sense of control, that withdrawing will protect them from the hurt that, somewhere deep inside, they're convinced is coming. Yet, paradoxically, this very withdrawal is often what causes the pain they were trying to avoid in the first place. They crave connection as much as they fear it. And this inner contradiction keeps them stuck in patterns of getting close, pulling back, getting close again, and pulling back again. When they fall into real love, these cycles become even more pronounced. Inside their emotional world, love triggers a flood of conflicting messages. One voice says, "Open up, let this person in, let yourself be held." Another voice screams, "Danger, protect yourself, get out before it hurts." Their fear isn't really of love itself, it's of what love might take from them. They fear losing their sense of self, their autonomy, the emotional control that once kept them feeling safe in a world that felt unpredictable. So when they begin to feel genuinely attached to someone, they instinctively create distance as a way to manage the vulnerability that love is awakening inside them. This is why they might suddenly go quiet after a deeply intimate conversation, or why they seem emotionally detached right after sharing something real and honest. It's their nervous system reacting, not their heart closing. The great tragedy of avoidant fear is that it so often masks genuine and deep affection. They think they're protecting themselves by withdrawing, but in doing so, they're also protecting themselves from the very closeness and love they silently desire. Deep down, they want to trust love, but trust requires surrender, and surrender to them still feels like stepping off a cliff with no guarantee of anything below. What helps an avoidant person move through this fear is not pressure or ultimatums. It's emotional safety that is offered consistently, without force, without conditions. When they experience a love that doesn't demand their constant openness, when they see that they can need space and still be accepted, the internal panic begins to ease. Over time, their automatic instinct to withdraw weakens. It gets slowly replaced by a growing and real desire to stay present, even in the moments that feel uncomfortable. They begin to understand, at a level deeper than thought, that vulnerability doesn't always lead to pain, and that needing someone doesn't mean losing themselves. This understanding marks the real beginning of emotional healing for them. The fear of intimacy that controlled their life for so long is really a fear of being hurt again, of repeating a story they never wanted to live through twice. But when they start to feel genuinely safe enough to remain close, even while afraid, that's when love begins to transform them in ways they never expected and maybe never even allowed themselves to hope for. What was once a wall slowly becomes a bridge. What was once silence slowly becomes a quiet and steady form of trust. And what was once fear starts, bit by bit, to turn into something that feels a lot like courage. The courage to stay open in the presence of love, even when every part of them still trembles at the thought of being truly seen and accepted. Patience is the bridge that allows love to actually reach the heart of an avoidant. And this is something most people don't understand until it's too late. For someone who has spent most of their life retreating from real closeness, patience is not just kindness, it is healing in motion. Avoidance moves slowly when it comes to trust, Not because they don't feel things, but because they feel things so deeply that every step toward intimacy feels like stepping into unknown territory where old fears still linger just beneath the surface. They need time to observe